Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. I'm Colin, and today we're going over my top 5 albums of 1973. All right, guys, we are almost done with the years ending in the number 3, just a couple more to go after this. This was another difficult year. Honestly, there were so many great albums that came out in 73. I did have a hard time narrowing it down. I am pretty happy with my choices, though. After much deliberation, I just, decided to stop overthinking it. Before we get into the honorable mentions, please go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't already. And then without further ado, let's talk about the first honorable mention, Golden Earrings Moontan. So I love this album. This is what I gave out for the November giveaway that I did and mystery box unboxing. And it's such a good, like, hard rock, like 70s rock album. I think it's super rated. Most people know like the lead single Radar Love off of it, but not a lot of people have listened to it front to back, which is a shame because it's a fantastic album. Next is going to be Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Now, Elton John is an artist that, like, I do enjoy, and I can easily appreciate how talented he is. His just brand of like piano driven like pop rock has never been my favorite thing, but this album is really good. Like, if I was going to listen to an Elton John album, like, this is the one that I would listen to. It's a really fun album, and I think pretty essential listening to anyone that like wants to know more about like just the history of popular music. And then last but certainly not least is going to be Herbie Hancock's Headhunters. This is an album that I actually didn't discover until like 4 or 5 years ago, but my mind was blown. It's like a jazz fusion album, but that's like not really even doing it like, justice, because there's so many different elements on this. Just some prog rock, some psych rock, some just like absolute insane arrangements that he's able to get on it, and it's definitely worth a listen for anyone that's interested in a masterclass of like music composition. The honorable mentions out of the way, let's get into the top 5. All right, number 5 is going to be Lark's Tongue and Aspic by King Crimson. So this was actually the first King Crimson album I bought on vinyl. The first one I think I ever listened to was In the Court of the Crimson King. I think that's where most people got their start, and it is like the gold standard for prog rock. But this album is absolutely incredible. Both the title tracks, so part 1 and part 2, are some of like just the greatest prog pieces ever written. But this whole album, front to back, is incredible. Exiles, the last song on side 1, is really good as well. I think this, and I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure this album was like just Robert Fripp, and a lot of like the other founding members had like left at that point, and then it was mostly like new members that had come on. But that doesn't take away for like how good of an album it is. And if you like prog rock at all and you haven't listened to this, you need to like put it at the top of your list because it is so good. Number 4 is going to be Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin. Now, I personally think this is one of the most underrated Led Zeppelin albums. Obviously, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then like Physical Graffiti get the majority of the love, but Houses of the Holy has some absolutely incredible songs on it. From The Song Remains the Same to Over the Hills and Far Away. The Crunge, I think, is amazing. Did Your Maker is, a kind of a goofy song, but I really enjoy it as well. Just front to back, though, this album is a little bit stripped down. There's less like rockin' songs on it. There's definitely still some. I mean, obviously it's Led Zeppelin, but like I love the more kind of, folksy, kind of laid back vibe that they had going for a good chunk of this album. And I don't think it gets nearly enough love in their discography. Obviously, if Led Zeppelin has put out an album, it's going to be probably on my top 5 list. But this one in particular, I do listen to pretty regularly. Number 3 is going to be Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On. Now, I'm going to be straight up. I was not much of a like soul or R&B guy growing up. It just wasn't what was like played in my house. It wasn't something that I listened to a lot. And then in college, one of the guys in one of my music technology classes, like my sound engineering class, found out that I hadn't listened to this album front to back, and he's like, "Dude, I stop what you're doing, go listen to it tonight, come back, let me know." And boy, was he right. So now I do listen to a lot more like soul and R&B than I did when I was younger, and a big reason for that is because of this album. I don't listen to it as much as I should, honestly, just because one, I don't have it on vinyl, which I'm looking for like a specific pressing. But also, generally, when I listen to soul and R&B, I have just like a playlist that it's a few hours long, and I kind of just go through that. But this album, front to back, is such a beautiful album. It's an incredible, sexy album. I don't want to get too deep into that, but go listen to the songs. You'll hear what I'm talking about. Obviously, like the title track of "Let's Get It On" is absolutely incredible, but "If I Should Die Tonight" and "Come Get to This" are just two absolutely gorgeous songs as well. If you haven't listened to this album, you have to do it because there's so many albums that came after this that like take influence from this. I know "What's Going On" is probably like more monumental in his discography, but I personally prefer this one. But you can't go wrong with either one of them. But since this one came out in 73, that's what we're going with. So number 3, Marvin Gaye's "Let's Get It On." Number 2 is going to be Aladdin Sane, David Bowie. Again, David Bowie is pretty much always going to find his way onto my list. I cannot talk enough about him. I think he's absolutely incredible. One of the best songwriters of all time. And this album, it's got a very special place in my heart as well. So obviously, I feel like, a lot of people view, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars as like his magnum opus or like one of his best albums, which it is. It very much is. So for this to be the follow up to that, I think at the time a lot of people were a little disappointed in it because it kind of went in a different direction. But I think it still stands up super, super well. I mean, Gene Genie is one of the best, just like straight up rock songs he's ever written. Watch That Man, the opening track is really fun. Prettiest Star, like front to back, it's just such a good album. Doesn't get enough love. It doesn't get enough credit. I mean, it does because it's Bowie and it's an incredible album. But like, again, anytime you follow up like the album in an artist's career, I think there's a lot of people that, maybe dismiss it a little bit, and they really shouldn't because it's one of the best in his discography. I'd put it probably top 5 in his discography. And if you haven't listened to it, one of the best, just like glam rock, art rock, pop rock albums ever written. And I will die on that hill. Number 1, and this should come to absolutely no surprise to anyone that knows me, is "Dark Side of the Moon" by Pink Floyd. This is, in my opinion, a perfect album. There is not a single thing wrong with it. It front to back, it just flows super well. It's got some of like the craziest use of synthesizers you'll ever hear, especially from like the early 70s in On the Run. Obviously, like the big tracks off it, Time, Breathe, Money, but I mean, Brain Damage, like it's such a good album. I could just go on and on and on about it. It's, one of the best-selling albums of all time, so I don't have to go on and on about it. There's plenty of people out there that know how good this album is, and if you're not one of them, like, go listen to it because it really is that good. It's not my favorite album in Pink Floyd's discography, but it is a perfect album, and that's saying something. And I am a huge Pink Floyd fan. This album is a big reason why, and I certainly don't have to tell you why it's so good, but I'm just gonna leave it off at that because this album's been talked about so much. I don't need to go into any further detail. It's my number 1 with a bullet. Not even a question. All right, guys, so that's it. Those are my top 5 albums of 1973. Let me know down in the comments what your top 5 albums of 1973 are. I always love seeing other people's lists. As always, please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.